I love video games. I love playing video games with friends. A lot of multiplayer games are released on Steam and a lot of them have no players. I don't need to do a long intro for this one, you guys get the point. Let's take a look at some Steam games that are quote unquote dead and see if any of them are worth playing. Let's start off with a game by the name of Rumbleverse. The first thing I know I'm going to hear is, this game wasn't on Steam. Yeah, I know. What are you going to do about it? Huh? Anyways, this was a wrestling battle royale that was exclusive to the Epic Games Store. Well, that should give you reason number one of why this game died. I got to play it a bit before it did, and honestly, it was pretty fun. Instead of most traditional battle royales, this one was melee focused, with the loot being different moves and items you can use to enhance that melee combat. I was pretty bad at it, but even in the little bit I was able to play, combat was pretty fun. The art style was fine, and the game was a little jank, but there wasn't anything jumping out at me as like specifically really bad. So why did the game die then? Well, I mentioned it earlier, but PC gamers avoid the Epic Games Store like the plague, so that didn't really help. However, it was hurt even more by the fact that the game is just kinda niche. A wrestling-focused battle royale is a fun concept, but unless it was like the greatest game ever, it probably would have a hard time pulling people in. It also didn't help that it didn't have any ties to like any actual wrestling organization like the WWE, so it can't even use that type of branding to help. It's a shame because it was a fun concept. I think it could have had more legs if it was a 3v3 wrestling fighting game or something similar instead of a huge battle royale. The issue with battle royales is that they need hundreds of dedicated players, and most games just can't get that. At the end of each game, I'm going to give a yes or no on whether you should play this game, and since this one is completely shut down, there's not really much for me to say on that front. I always hate to see games shut down completely, but if there's a client or private server that ever pops up someday, I'll definitely check it out and cover it on here. The next game I have is Hot Lava. This game is completely different from the last one. Not only is it a paid game, but it's a parkour speedrunning game. Imagine the kids' game of The Floor is Lava, but adapted to a video game. Honestly, it's pretty fun from what I've played. You don't typically see a lot of these parkour-like games anymore. The biggest one I can think of was like Mirror's Edge, and that was years ago. The movement in this game is fun to learn and get good at, and it really brings a sense of wonder and imagination to these pretty simple level ideas turned into lava-covered parkour jungle gyms. The main fun and replayability to the game is the levels that encourage you to replay them over and over to get faster times on the leaderboard. There's also like a small hub section to each set of levels that all I saw in there was kind of just people trying to be racist. This game isn't really dead in the traditional sense. The game is fully playable single player, it's just the live multiplayer aspects are probably hard to find these days. I mainly just didn't know where else I could talk about this game, so I figured to here. I had a lot of fun with this game, and honestly, I'd recommend picking it up if it goes on sale. Now, back to the actually dead stuff, specifically Combat Arms Reloaded. Well, this one is still online too, but barely. I went into this game blind, but I wanted to give it a chance since FPS games are usually my forte. But man, this game is great. I know the last time I called a Counter-Strike-like game bad, I got a bunch of hate for it, but I gotta stand on business this time. The best comparison I can make to this game is older Counter-Strike, but that gunplay is more adapted to COD-like modes like TDM or Domination. The gunplay and maps seem fine. The main issue with this game is the horribly pay-to-win stuff. I was getting owned the entire time I played this game, and while part of that was definitely on my lack of skill, they just had much better guns than me. It also just feels very aged despite being a remake of an older game. The FPS genre is so saturated that games like these just have no place, and no one really cares enough to play them except the people who are too financially invested in it to let go. This is just like NFTs, huh? Well, even if you wanted to play, there's like 10 people playing it, so it's hard to find more than like 2 matches at all, and you certainly can't really find any of them in North America. The reviews of this game kind of say the same things I did. It was a stupid remake filled with pay-to-win junk that nobody wanted to play. Yeah, there's just much better games to play with your time. Back to the Battle Royales, we have the Darwin Project. This was one of the first Battle Royales to really gain traction back when the genre first started. I did actually play a match or two of it back in the day on like Xbox, and the core memory for me was getting stuck somewhere in a place that I couldn't escape from. The game was a battle royale focused a lot more on the survival aspect, with weapons being bows and axes and the abilities needing to be crafted throughout the map. It had this really unique blend of wilderness survival and futuristic high tech that I haven't really seen much before. I played a few matches of this game against bots, and honestly, I thought it was pretty fun. I liked how survival was a big part of it. where most modern battle royales don't really have that sense anymore. The combat was fun too. It wasn't super in-depth, but it felt frantic and chaotic. Problem with this game is that it's a battle royale and has little to no players right now. I mentioned that I had to play against bots, and at least it has that option, or else I probably wouldn't even have the opportunity to play at all. It seems like the game died because it was just too niche and had a high skill gap, while a lot of other battle royales were more casual friendly and had more frequent updates. The saddest part is that this game doesn't even need 100 players like most battle royales. All it needs is 10 in a match, and it still struggles to get that. I like this game, and even if it's dead, I can recommend it under specific circumstances. If you got a group of 9 or 10 people and you want to try something new for like a game night, I think this game is perfect for some fun. You aren't going to dedicate your life to this like something like Warzone or Fortnite, but it's a fun change of pace. Now let's go back to shooters, but not first person. The next game is CS2D. I had this game in my library for a while, but it started blowing up last year after a big video came out talking about how cool it was. Honestly though, in my humble opinion, it's alright. You shouldn't go into it looking for something like CS2. It harps more back to something like 1.6 or Source. Despite that though, this really is what you see on the tin. It's Counter-Strike in 2D. Imagine those Battle Royale IO games and how they played, or something like Super Animal Royale, and that's how camera and gameplay tended to work here. Most of the maps were recreations of ones from the original game, like Dust, Mirage, and Inferno. The game plays like Counter-Strike, and was decent fun. There's even extra modes I got to play, like zombie survival and a weird mode where it was me versus like 10 bots trying to rescue a hostage. This game is a pretty good recreation of Counter-Strike in 2D, but I just don't think there's really that much here to do in the long term. The player base tends to hang around the 15 to 20 player mark, so there's a small but dedicated community here, but that's still only really enough to fill up like 3 servers worth, maybe. Most people unfortunately just see this as a gimmick game, so it never really gained a huge amount of traction. Despite this though, I still think it's worth a shot. It's small and at least has a few players on. I'm halfway through these games, and considering you're still here, it probably means you liked the video, so if you can show it with a like and maybe even a sub, I'd much appreciate it.
Unless you want to end up like these games.
Going back to the paid games, we got Deceive Inc. This game first popped up on my radar a few years ago during like one of the summer game announcement things, but I never actually played it until years later when I was able to get like a key for it for like $2. And I think it also went free for a week on Epic too. This game is a PvP spy game where the goal is to blend in, steal some loot from a vault, and successfully extract while other agents are doing the same thing to you. There isn't really a lot of games that are both PvP and stealth, so this honestly felt like a breath of fresh air. I also got lucky enough to have a friend help me play the game with a bit more guidance, as he has over 100 hours in this game. This is much appreciated as I think the game in general has a very large skill gap and very high learning curve, just out of concept. In most FPS games, you can rely on your aim to succeed for the most part, but you need that in this game, in addition to the ability to stealthily move around well and go through objectives. I think I would need a good amount of time in this game to even just get decent. Even despite that, I had fun playing. There wasn't constant action, so there was a solid bit of tension throughout the entire match, and when those fights did happen, it made them extra intense. The game is solid, so why did it die? I mean that in a definitive sense too, since not only does it have around 10 to 20 players on Steam at a given time, but the studio behind the game is officially defunct. I think the first thing is this game just not being free to play. Whether it's fair or not, it's hard to be a successful multiplayer game in this day and age without it being free to play. There's just so many multiplayer games out there nowadays that it's hard to get people on board to pay for them, especially when you need multiple of your friends to buy it too. Outside of Helldivers, most big multiplayer games have been either free or cheap. Deceive Inc. was already a niche concept, and having a $20 price tag made that barrier of entry even higher. If you had this game already or got it on Epic, maybe try it. It was a fun idea, and you could maybe have some fun with your friends in a private match. However, do not buy this game if you're curious. Yet, at least. The developers behind it are gone, and the servers are kind of in a state of limbo. They said they're going to look into solutions to keeping the game online, but I would not think about buying it unless those are confirmed. Especially when some people can't even play it right now due to the issues with the easy anti-cheat. The next game is a game that somehow I've never heard of despite it being made by Ubisoft. Battlecore Arena. This is going to be different than the other games I talked about in this video because I literally couldn't play it. Despite the game being free to play, I installed it on Steam and the game would either just not launch or ask me for an activation key. It wouldn't really matter considering that the game has an average of like 0.5 players and the official servers shut down shortly after I recorded this. Before I talk about the game, I will give a lot of credit here. They switched the game to a peer-to-peer model. so you can still play private matches with friends. Considering that most companies don't care at all about preservation, implementing that feature automatically makes the game a positive in my book. It's just a shame that it was a selling point of your launch trailer. The gameplay looked pretty decent. It was a mix of Super Monkey Ball and an old school arena shooter, which honestly sounds kind of insane, and yeah, even just looking at it, it kind of looks insane too. The game died because I assume they did like no marketing, because the trailers for this didn't even break 15,000 views, and I had no idea Ubisoft even made this. Also, the whole concept is just very niche. So it didn't really help with that either. If there's interest in it, I could try and play this game for another video, but considering that it didn't have much interest in the first place, I don't know if that'll happen. Preservation is good though. If only you did that with X Defiant. Now it's time for another Battle Royale again. A lot of these dead games are Battle Royales, huh? Well, this one was another pretty unique one. Battlerite Royale. This is a spin-off of another game called Battlerite that I have never played, but I know it's like a MOBA-like with a pretty small player base. Well, this game asks, what if you took something like League or Dota and made it a Battle Royale? Despite me not really liking top-down MOBAs at all, the little bit I played of this was kind of fun. The game had very few players, so I had to play with bots, unfortunately. However, I did find those matches fun. It was a unique experience that I haven't really had in any Battle Royale before. The combat was a lot more face-to-face like an actual MOBA, and the items you would typically buy from the shop were the loot in the match. The main issue with the game is that it's a Battle Royale with a strict MOBA-like map. It's hard to avoid an incoming circle when the paths you can take are so restricted. This game is worth a shot if you want to play something unique for like a few minutes against bots, but other than that, I would avoid it. But why did it die? Well, apparently they developed this game away from the main Battlerite game for over a year when it was already a niche game and none of their players really liked it. This basically ended up killing both games at once due to wanting to chase the Battle Royale trend. I don't have it in this video, but at least the original Battlerite is still hovering around 100 or so players, so if you want to give it a try, you can. Now, the final Battle Royale. Kinda? I don't really know. This one has a special place in my heart, Bro Falls. This game is a free game on Steam that basically just copied Fall Guys to a T. Or at least that's how it looked. It worked too, because this game had thousands of players playing it at one time despite some accusations of it being a Bitcoin miner. This is because Fall Guys wasn't free yet, so if people wanted a free alternative of that game, they could just play this very similar game instead. And Stumble Guys didn't exist yet. I even made a video on the game years ago when it still had players. Now the game is lucky to have over 100 players on a given day. Well, what happened? Firstly, Fall Guys went free, so the people that would have played Fall Guys instead just went to go play the actual game, or Stumble Guys. And secondly, they shot themselves in the foot. The reason people play this game was because it's free, but they decided to change the game into a free-to-try model with limited stuff and a $5 purchase to unlock everything. I get the devs have to make money somehow, but this was an insanely bad read of your audience and the game immediately tanked after. Enough about the outside stuff. How was the game itself? Well, I said it was like Fall Guys, and that is true for the majority of players. You're a wobbly cartoon fruit trying to make your way through deadly obstacles to be the last one standing. However, one person made this different. Instead of everyone being on the same playing field with predetermined obstacles, there was one player who was a broccoli who controlled the traps like in Death Run. This helped the game stand out a lot more than it seemed on the surface. Fall Guys mixed with Death Run is an awesome concept, but this is really the only game I can think of that's done it. This game still has the potential to be fun, but like I mentioned earlier, the game is cooked. Get it? Food reference? If you want to try it out for the lulz, you can, but honestly, Fall Guys is free, man, even if you gotta download the Epic Games Store. For the final game of this video, let's go back to Ubisoft with a game called Roller Champions. This game takes after games like Rocket League, where it makes a fictional sport for you to compete in. In this game, you roller skate around a racetrack, and for every lap you take with the ball in your hands of your team, you get more points. Whenever you want to score, you have to put the ball through the ring on the wall. Seems pretty simple, but like a lot of other sports games, there's a high skill ceiling to the movement and gameplay, where you can learn to almost zoom through the track. Despite being pretty bad, I had a lot of fun playing this. I love these fake sports games where they can do wacky and cool concepts, and I just like a good sports game in general. Everything felt really fluid and not really buggy, and even if some of the players were way better than me, it's still relatively fair due to good team balancing. So why did this game die? It's Ubisoft, man. They don't support their games well at all. I barely even knew this game existed either. It also is another one of those games that have a high skill ceiling, so a lot of new players are probably going to get crushed and immediately leave. Despite this though, I honestly recommend giving this game a try. Even if updates have stopped, the servers are still on and there's probably about 100 or so players between all platforms. So you'll at least be able to find a match. I haven't really played another game like this, so I think it is worth a shot. So what did we learn today? I don't really know. Probably something like that Smule ad from 10 years ago.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Just because the game is quote unquote dead doesn't mean you can't at least give it a shot. Stop playing COD and Fortnite every day and try something new, goddammit. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Pretty pleased with the bro falls on top. Special thanks to Cam, Mr. Bungicide, Master Necro, and Nico for supporting me on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Links below to that and my Discord if you want to be extra special and help me out even more. My name is Chaos For Real, and if life is like a box of chocolates, death is a pickle. You never know when you're gonna Gert.